Welcome to the Sonic Days podcast, home of all things audio. This season was recorded live at Sonic Days 2024. In this episode, Oscar Lemke takes you through the process of producing music and sound design for the podcast Operation Pellegrino, a collaboration between Zetland and Third Ear. Oscar discusses various stages of the creative process, including composition, sound design, and delivery. Please note that the talk begins in Danish, but switches to English at the 14-minute mark.
Tak for at være kommet. Det er dejligt at se jer. Jeg har også glædet mig. Ja, lidt om mig. Jeg arbejder på Zetland som lyddesigner. Jeg er egentlig lige dimitteret her fra en gang et år siden, og vi lavede et samarbejde med Third Ear. Jeg var lige rykket over i den undersøgende redaktion på Zetland, havde været i Samfund og Politik, hvor der var mange hurtige deadlines og ting, der ligesom skulle eksekveres. Og det var bare rigtig godt til mig at komme et sted hen, hvor der var lidt mere scope på, så jeg kunne bruge mine skills til at lave musik og sådan noget. Og det var den første ting, vi skulle lave, det var Operation Pellegrino. Så jeg lander der og får at vide, det er den her moderne tech-spy drama. Hvem skal bygge vores 5G-internet? Er det Huawei fra Kina eller Ericsson fra Sverige? Vi har en super badass cybersecurity boss. Et fedt interview, mange fede interviews med ham, ligesom Torsten, som sådan rummer både at kunne være vred og kunne være... Han er en god fortæller. Men til gengæld så er der ikke så mange ting ud af ham, så sådan lydsiden, musiksiden skal også fylde meget. Det skal ligesom sådan kunne drive det. Vi har den her muldvarpe, The Pandas, der, som vi ved, der også kommer ind. Og generelt sådan en følelse af sådan paranoia, der sådan gennemstrømmer det hele. Det er lidt sådan, for at sætte ligesom settingen i mit hoved, hvad skal der være? Jeg ved også, der kommer til at være sådan et Torsten samler holdet-agtigt moments, at vi skal have et getting the team back together. Vi ved, der er den her scene, hvor der kommer ligesom en drone, der flyver forbi den her store plæstnerbygning, hvor der sådan virkelig shit hits the fan. Hvor den her paranoia, ligesom, hvad kan man egentlig gøre ved den? Er den bare overalt? Vi ved, at cybersecurity-folk sidder nede i en bunker, og der er ham her muldvarpen, der ligesom rejser frem og tilbage med telefoner. Og alle de her ting var ligesom noget, jeg kunne bruge sådan, okay, hvad skal lyden så lyde til muldvarpen? Hvordan skal det lyde op i plæstnerbygningen? Ja, så jeg gik i gang. Jeg kastede mig sgu bare ud i det. Jeg lavede ikke så meget research først. Jeg vidste jo, at det skulle være sammen med 30 Ear, så var jeg sådan, okay, hvordan lyder 30 Ear? Der er måske lidt sådan, lidt vibes, lidt sådan akkorderne, og sådan... Altså, det er jo også Zetland og 30 Ear, så det var heller ikke, det kun lyder af 30 Ear. Det var lige sådan, finde rundt i det her. Og også sådan, Huawei, Kina, hvor stereotypt må det også være, for jeg begynder at pådutte alle mulige ting. Altså, det lyder meget fedt, men der var også meget sådan kvart-agtig vibe. Så, og jeg er cellist, så jeg vidste, at celloen ligesom skulle fylde, fordi jeg kan føle mig fri på den. Så det skulle ligesom være en ting. Men så de her ting producerede jeg, og viste dem til min redaktør, Kåre Sørensen, og Frederik Kålager fra Zetland, som jeg ligesom arbejdede tæt sammen med. Vi kan lige høre lidt med den her, fordi jeg begår ligesom en af de store fejl, man tit begår, når man laver podcastmusik. Og de var sådan, wow, okay, fuck, det lyder vildt, Oscar. Hvor skal vi speak hen på det her? Har du tænkt over det? Og sådan, ja, okay, måske ikke så meget. Jeg havde ligesom bare fået, der var sådan der har jeg tjekket sådan noget cyberpunk ud, og var meget gået med den. Og jeg tror, det jeg vil sige med de her ting, der ikke made the cut, det er, at sådan, det er vigtigt at kunne udforske stadig. Fordi jeg fandt mange af lydene, som jeg stadig endte med at bruge fra de her ting. Jeg kører ligesom sådan et flow, at når jeg laver en lyd, så gemmer jeg den, så jeg har sådan en hel liste af instrumenter, jeg kan hive frem igen, når jeg ligesom er rundt i de forskellige sessions. Min redaktør sagde så, find et motiv og så fokuser på det. Og der var jeg sådan, okay, motiver. Hvad er egentlig fede motiver? Han var sådan, prøv at høre den der igen sammen. Jeg starter med den, Det kunne det være. Der var også den her fra Kidnappet.
Taget til fange i Danmark.
For mig blev det her bam, 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 bam. Lidt det her motiv for den her serie, ikke? Det viste sig at være en ret fed vej at gå og prøve at finde det der motiv først. Og også i den her research, så dykkede jeg også ned i Rotus og fandt sådan, okay, de har en lang outro, så der må jeg egentlig godt overproducere, gå amok på et track, så ved jeg, at jeg skal have de her andre tracks, der bare skal være underscore. Ligesom sådan, det hjalp mig ligesom med at udforme, hvad for nogle bidder, jeg skulle lave, ikke? Og lad os gå over til motivet. Og jeg ved ikke helt, altså sådan, jeg var jo bare sådan, vi skal have den her cello med, ikke? My baby cello. Og så sådan, det er nøjeren, det er cyber, det er bass, vi skal have sådan noget, det er epic, og så melodi. Det endte ligesom med at blive motivet. Ja, og den her, det er også noget, jeg kommer tilbage til. Fordi jeg synes, det er ret sjovt, at tingene udvikler sig hen ad vejen. Sådan, så laver jeg, det her er egentlig bare den her synth nu, den lyder fedt. Men så i lyddesign-delen, så begynder jeg at kombinere forskellige sound effects og reallydsbidder med de her, hvad skal man sige, musikstems. Så det begynder at være, okay, den her, den kunne tyde på, at det har med Huawei at gøre nu. Og det endte, den her synth, det endte med at være ret Huawei-agtigt. Lad os prøve at køre videre, og så soloer jeg bare sådan lidt hen ad vejen, så kan vi lige høre. Fik gang i sådan en guitar her. Ret sådan plain. Den skulle ligesom bare have noget movement. Og i det her spring, det var også lidt sådan en genre-ting, jeg udforskede, det her spion-genre. Lidt sådan James Bond, der spring guitar. Sådan kan jeg kombinere lidt sådan, ja, velkendte ting fra genren med det her cyber noget. Teksturting. Og jeg har også prøvet sådan ligesom, at det ligger og bygger op, at der skal helst være den her dynamik, som man kan sådan lige give den en pause, og så komme ind igen, så ligesom er de her bølger, så det ikke bliver for statisk. Nogle af de her lidt sådan 30'er-agtige lyde fra min udforskning af det hele, der sneser med ind. Efter jeg så havde snakket med min redaktør, og Frederik gik jeg i gang med de her, de opstod lige så stille, fik jeg også Tim i røret, hvor jeg var sådan, hej Tim, I'm a huge fan, skal du have noget musik-agtigt? Og hvor han så var sådan, jamen du skal bare passe på med ikke at overkomplicere det, bare lave stems, fordi folk laver altid for mange ting, så kan vi pille det ud, og så skal det nok gå. Så han var sådan, I'm looking forward to seeing you with the whole package. Så sådan, bare lav det, og så kom. Så der var ikke nogen sådan revisioner hen ad vejen, hvilket også var lidt nøjeren, men jo også viste sig at være fint, fordi det gik ligesom. Og så det her med at kunne balancere, hvor man skal hen, fordi det er også et dystert univers, så kan man få noget, jeg vil ikke sige happy, men lidt mindre dystert ind, har også været vigtigt. Og det har været en ting, som jeg har vendt tilbage til flere gange i løbet af lyddesignprocessen, med at få det her lidt sådan, nu er der sgu endelig et breakthrough, eller en slags medvind. Det var på en eller anden måde den, der endte med at give mig den vibe af sådan, nu er vi sådan, we pull through. Ja. Og alt celloen er optaget af min bedstemors stue. Så det er ikke sådan det mest lydregulerede rum, men det kan man sagtens. Okay, lad os gå videre, for jeg har sådan en session, hvor der er alting af i, så kan vi bare hop crazy-agtigt rundt. Jeg synes også, jeg prøvede at gøre nogle lidt sådan rowdy ting. For de der outroer der, hvor jeg gav den fuld gas, hvor jeg ligesom tænkte, her speaker de sådan, det her er det sidste, der skete i episoden, og nu kigger vi fremad imod næste episode. Så kommer det her. Dem lavede ligesom 2 af de der outroer. Og jeg tror måske, i nogle ting, der ligesom, som jeg synes, jeg opdagede var spændende, var, hvordan jeg begyndte at kunne bruge sådan noget som filtre til ligesom at lave rytmiske ting. Det var egentlig okay nyt for mig, så jeg ikke behøvede at have trommer på det hele, men for eksempel have sådan et Moog-filter til at stå og køre på min el-bass her, som egentlig bare siger, det er bare en lang tone. Så lige med at finde det der sådan sweet spot. Og lave en eller anden slags også fordi det transformerer på en eller anden måde bassen til en synth. I mit hoved, det bliver lidt sådan den der hybrid, så der er stadig sådan alt det der, man får sådan, når man slider på guitar og sådan noget, det giver bare sådan meget, man får meget foræret der, føler jeg. Den her er måske også ret sjov at snakke om i forhold til at bygge op, hvor jeg egentlig har lavet sådan en udvikling for, at sådan hver 8. takt sker der noget nyt. Introducere ting og tage dem af. Helt klart sådan de blidere elementer. Sniger den sig ind. Vil du sige noget? Er der kommet folk, der taler engelsk til? Okay. So I've been speaking Danish so far. I will switch to English now. So I think this track is a good, like I managed to get a dynamic development through this track while still maintaining the same vibe. So you would be able to stop it here if you had the whole track, and it would be like one feeling you'd be left with, and you'd be able to stop it here at the end and there will be another feeling. Because I feel like the high frequent material takes over in the end. So it's like this track is called Torsten's Doubts. It's almost like his doubts are resolved at the end. It's like we start at a very like, what is happening? So I think like we should take a look at something that I was kind of like, is this too much? Are we even going to use it? Because this was my cello thing. I wanted this chase between the agent and the mole. I was like, where the hell are we gonna use this like double cello thing? But we ended up using it, and I was like, I just haven't heard this thing in a podcast before, so I was like, let's freaking make it, like do something new. That inspired me, and we had fortunately this d'Angleterre episode where everything was fancy pantsy, so this kind of fitted well there. Yeah, I will move on to the Ocean's 11 Gathering the Team a moment. I think what I've learned so far is just a lot of sticking to the same sounds. Like, don't go too far out. Explore a tiny bit, but just like when you have the core sounds, stick to them, I feel like. And the core motive is like... it comes over here. Yeah, just like extremely simple. Also, yeah, daring to keep it really simple. So I think I want to go back here just to remember a bit. The research. Yeah. My takeaways from research, like check out the grades. I watched like a lot of James Bond things, saw some video of the cyberpunk, like just like take in all the different genres and try to combine it. And don't be afraid to mimic it at first, I would say, because you're always going to bring your own flavor to it. I feel like maybe for me it was the cello, like it really helped put myself apart. But like, don't be afraid of the process. Like, make the mistakes. Mistakes are good and useful. I really found in this, and like this exploration was kind of special as well. I had 10 days for making the music, which is a long time in Zetland where I work. It really paid off there and was one of my favorite projects because of that, because I was able to go in many different directions. Yeah, so the takeaways that I found from making this in regards to producing music is try to find that motive and build from there. The easy thing to say, but the hard thing to do, and stick to the same sounds. And what I kind of, the track Torsten's Tvivl, where I felt like I was kind of making this thing happen, because you might have an idea how it's going to be used when you compose it, but it's a different story when sound designing it. When you have the stems and when you have like the earlier versions of how someone or yourself used it, like it can be like you can stop it in a different place and it just feels different. There's like this emotional range that every track kind of has. Let's go on to the sound design of this. I want to take something from episode 1 and episode 5. Maybe just actually touch a bit down on the process so far. I was to deliver it to Tim, and I bounced it out in stems. And I thought, well, my job is done now. I'll go back to Zetland and just make my articles there. And Tim liked it very much, so he was like, why don't this young fella come and do some sound design as well? And I was really pleased for that, that I could come and try to do that. But he was like, so Oscar, we produce in Pro Tools here. And I have been producing in Ableton through all the time that I've been at Zetland. So I was like, okay, then I just have to learn Pro Tools again. And I guess I know it. I knew it from my bachelor's, but I just had to get to learn Pro Tools again. And it was cool. I've been using Pro Tools ever since because it just has something going for it, especially when you do it like this, the third-year method. They're like, put every episode in your session, because then you can go and grab this piece and try to just copy it over and see how does this fit. Okay, something fits, then we'll change that. It just really revolutionized my workflow in case of working with series. And another part that enables this is the way that Third Year works so structured and methodically with creating these episodes. It's like they write everything in scenes. So a scene in like this 30th sense is supposed to be between 3 and 4 minutes long. You cannot stay in the same scene more than 4 minutes. You might get bored. So just like you need to write for this, you need to interview for this. It's part of like, it goes through the whole thing, but it makes it so much nicer for the sound designer, because it just, it makes it almost like Lego-esque. So we go into this room where I know that Krista and Frederik is having this talk. I've used this music before. I'll go there, copy it in. Okay, does this work? Yes, it works again. Because like when you make the same decision another time, that when you've made it before, it's like it kind of reinforces itself. That's how you build this serial identity, by being consistent in your choices. So I feel like I learned a lot there. And don't do too much. This is the vocal chain of Krista. We're like, I need 15 wave compressors on my shit, and then, maybe not 15, just 4. It's just funny to see like that you really don't need more, and just a lot of audio sweeting, so it enables your machine to not choke completely. I was like, when I got there, I've been working with Anne also on the project. You did some of Ruth's Hus as well. You showed me the session where there was like 9 episodes, and it was like, I need to wait a bit before I can. It was just loading because there were so many files in there. So it gets heavy eventually. Yeah. But I think we should have a listen to scene 1 of episode 1.
Du lytter til serien Operation Pellegrino, lavet i et samarbejde mellem Zetland og Third Ear. Det her er første kapitel. På den mørke nattehimmel over Københavns Nordhavn flyver en drone. Den flyver tæt forbi havnekajen, hvor Oslofærgen plejer lidt til. Det er en stor drone, men den er svær at skelne mod den mørke nattehimmel. Klokken er lidt over midnat. Det er lige blevet torsdag, og der er stille i Nordhavnen. Oslofærgen er sejlet for længst, kajen er tom, og i kontorbygningerne bagved på Amerikaplads er vinduerne mørke. Dronen flyver hen til den højeste af de kontorbygninger, og op til øverste etage, 15. etage. Den flyver tæt på, og hen langs vinduerne i facaden, som om den kigger ind, leder efter noget bag de mørke ruder. Da den kommer hen til et vindue på hjørnet, så tænder dronen en lygte. Den lyser ind af vinduet. I lyskejlen kan dronens kamera se, at rummet er tomt. Der er ikke nogen på arbejde nu. Men på væggen hænger billeder, dokumenter og en tidslinje, post-it notes med små ord på. Lækagen, muldvarpen, mistænkte, sådan nogle ord. Det her er et stykke meget, meget hemmelig efterforskningsarbejde, som det bestemt ikke er meningen nogen som helst uden for det her rum skal se. Men nu hænger dronen altså der og lurer ind med sin lygte og kamera. Inde i bygningen på 15. etage sidder en vagt. Han skal sørge for, at ingen får lov til at komme ind i det her rum. Han må ikke engang selv gå derind. Han sidder ude på gangen på den anden side af den låste dør. Og derfra kan han altså igennem facadens vinduer se dronen lure ind i det hemmelige efterforskningsrum. Men der er ikke noget, han kan gøre ved det fra den her side af vinduet, og efter 10 minutter, der flyver dronen væk fra bygningen og forsvinder ud i mørket.
And so we started. Another note I want to make on this was when I was done with this, I did the sound design for episode 1, and often the sound design for episode 1 is very formative in case of the rest of the series. You're not going to change it that much. So I used all the stems. I was like, I just turned it off there, and when I gave it to Tim, and he was like, what the fuck, Oscar, why is there so many tracks in your sessions? I don't want so many music tracks. I just want one music track. And so I was like, I bounced it down to 2 tracks here because I had some effects going as well. Part of my journey with Pro Tools there, I guess. But what I find is really interesting in this scene, or was interesting for me to work with, is how these real sounds and music elements are layered. For example, the drone. And this tiny synth, like.
Klokken er lidt over midnat. Det er lige blevet torsdag, og der er stille i Nordhavn.
It's just this slight nudging of maybe when the synth is there, Huawei is there as well, ish. Thing that I find is really interesting to work with. Of course, the dynamics of stuff happening, like the drone flies to the tower. It's like.
Er vinduerne mørke? Dronen flyver hen til den højeste af de kontorbygninger.
It starts building there, right?
Og op til øverste etage. 15. etage. Den flyver tæt på, og hen langs vinduerne i facaden, som om den kigger ind. Leder efter noget bag den mørke rude.
It's almost like it's looking through the windows. Like
den kommer hen til et vindue på hjørnet.
With the music effects as well.
Så tænder dronen en lygte. Den lyser ind af vinduet. I lyskejlen kan dronens kamera se, at rummet er tomt. Der er ikke nogen på arbejde nu.
So for me, in the sound design, it's just a big thing, maybe because music is such a big thing for me, like to be merging the sound effects elements and the real sounds, like recordings, with these musical elements, like to create something. Let's move on a bit. Something that is really important as well in these podcasts is, especially when you go so methodically to it with these scenes, is how you transition between the scenes. It's these transitions that are kind of key to keeping you engaged. So making nice transitions. And we'll just have a listen to this, where it's just this paranoia thing. Is Torsten imagining Huawei everywhere? Or it's not like Huawei is not playing in his radio, but it kind of is here. It's like an abstract way of showing his paranoia.
Ham, der kan stå i vejen for, at deres verdensomspændende fremtidsplaner kommer til at lykkes. Det er en enorm modstander, som Torsten er på vej op imod. Huawei, en af verdens største virksomheder, 200.000 ansatte over hele verden. Og mobiltelefoner i lommen på flere 100 millioner af verdens borgere.
Don't believe everything you hear. 引领创新，共建更美好的全连接世界。
Jeg ved ikke, om det helt er gået op for ham den her søndag aften i bilen. Hvor stor en modstanderen lige har fået, og hvor langt de vil gå. For det her er kun lige begyndt.
Yeah, so that was an example of a transition. Like, I wanted him to be in the car. Actually, that was a kind of a lesson for me as well. I was like, you heard the car passing by. I didn't put that in at first because I was like, I want him to be in the car where we hear the radio, so we're in the car. And Tim was like, yeah, but we're not gonna know that he's in a car. It's like a movie almost. You have to see the car exterior for you to know it's a car that it's about before you get into the car. And maybe I've not been working with film, so it was not obvious to me, but it was a cool thing when working with Tim, getting some movie-ish tips. Yeah, let's move on to episode 5 here. Something I really like to do when there is time for it is to go and make some of my own recordings of, like, this is a scene where the mole, is arriving at work. So he gets to work, checks in, opens the door, opens his computer. Because there's always, like, you have to be careful not to kind of mimic everything in a cartoonish way. And when I listened back to this yesterday, I am kind of committing a carnal sin here. Often you put, like, the sound before it is being said that it is done. Let's see what I do here.
For at give sådan et komplet billede. Mm-hmm. Og det arbejder de på nede i kælderen, sætter det sammen, indtil de til sidst har en ret god idé om, hvad der skete den dag mellem Jason og mellemlederen.
Hvad er der så sket?
De kan se, at han møder ind tidligt om morgenen. Han biber sig ind med sin nøglebrik. Så går han ind ad døren op på sit kontor. Og der åbner han sin bærbare computer. Og så kan de se ud fra computerens logdata, altså hvad er der sket på computeren. Der kan de se, at han åbner en mappe. Og i den mappe ligger der en masse powerpoints. Og så klikker han på den powerpoint, hvor Ericssons pris, den tophemmelige pris, står. Så går han gennem slidesene og kigger på prisen. Så kan de se, at computeren går på standby, fordi han lukker låget på computeren. Og så kan de se, at få minutter efter, der forlader han sit kontor, går ned gennem TDC's gange, går ud gennem en bagdør ud til en parkeringsplads. Kort efter han har forladt TDC-bygningen, der ringer han til Jason.
Jason Land fra Huawei.
Ja, som sidder i bygningen lige ved siden af. De har jo en kaffeaftale nu, ikke? Det er den.
Det er kaffeaftalen.
Det er kaffeaftalen, der går i gang nu. Og så kan de se, at på tidspunktet for kaffeaftalen, der bliver mellemlederens computer åbnet, og PowerPointen bliver fundet frem og står på skærmen. Og jeg ved ikke, om de sidder og drikker kaffe, Jason og mellemlederen.
Men det er på et tidspunkt, hvor de har en aftale om, at de skal være sammen.
Ja.
Der bliver computeren åbnet, og PowerPointen bliver åbnet.
Ja.
Okay.
Det er her, at
I really love this. It's like the computer is opened. The most epic opening of a computer ever.
Det er her, at Thorsten og efterforskerne mener, at Jason ser det tal, han skal bruge for at kunne vinde adgang til Danmarks internet.
Yeah, basically, I went out there with my recorder and did some of these transition sounds when he's going to work, when he's going out, getting the sound of being at a parking lot. It's just, you can find it easily sometimes, and sometimes it's just cool to do this. And it's also cool to get off your desk sometimes, get out there to record some stuff. Yeah, sound design wise, it was kind of cool. They were looking at some surveillance footage here, like
rapporten.
Thorstens folk beder vagterne i TDC's overvågningsrum om optagelser fra den mandag. Og på optagelserne kan de se, at det er mellemlederen, der går ud af døren den mandag, på vej over til kaffe med Jason med sin laptop under armen.
Det var så det endegyldige bevis på, at det var ham, som var kommet ind ad døren den morgen, og det var ham, der havde sin computer med under armen, da han går ud af døren over mod Huawei's bygning.
Det er det endegyldige bevis på, at mellemlederen er manden, som Torsten har jagtet. Han er Huawei's mand i TDC. Det er de helt overbeviste om. Han er Muldvarpen.
Muldvarpen.
Kom det som en overraskelse, at det var ham, der havde lækket?
Vi var overrasket over, at det var noget, der var foregået relativt højt op i virksomheden. Han havde et navn i TDC, han sad meget tæt på toppen, han var en mand med indflydelse i TDC.
Like, just to go to show it, the transitions doesn't have to be super insane, like click through a car and over in the radio. It can also just be like these reverb tails, kind of keeping it dynamic between the two of those. Like, how many interesting transitions can you make throughout the thing? If you have some questions now, I would love to do that, or we can talk more about the music, or I have brought my Stream Deck as well, which I am pretty thrilled about at the moment because I'm enjoying the SoundFlow workflow, because I found that Pro Tools is kind of clunky sometimes. You have to do several steps to do things. And I always have this kind of, ripple, delete everything on all tracks. It's set to 1 now. So it just does that and puts space into this as well. It's just set to 2. I don't know. It's just like small things like that kind of builds up. Because I have this very big screen at the place where I work. So on this screen, I have all my Audio Suite things sitting, which is kind of hard to work with now, but I'll just explain. So I found it was really hard to use pitch in Pro Tools, switch to Stream Deck. I just programmed it to click here, click, write in value, and I have a lot of different values, and then render. So it's just like one click and you transpose it down an octave. And I don't know if it's just super geeky also. Another thing, actually, so I have all my raw tape sitting at the top of the place, back in, and then I can just like solo and mute it. Like, so, these tiny things that just makes it easier. And I have this one show where I use Verify a lot. I don't know if you know the effect. It's like starts, or like it's like this tape stop and start, and I completely abuse it on that show. So I had to make these 2 buttons for it. I've always liked the fact that it's so like collective. There's this forum about how you do stuff there, so we can like explore it together. And I'm curious to hear you, like if you have some nice SoundFlow tips and tricks for me, because I still feel like I'm sort of a noob. And maybe not this just like Windows configuration thing is not the most clever way to do it. I don't know if you guys work with Windows configurations. I think it's kind of cool. It's like when I have my RX thing going, I just like switch to, go into RX, and then all these things are just there. So when I highlight somewhere, deplosive. So it's just like ready to go. Yeah. That's a bit about my Stream Deck experience lately. Yeah.
How do you gather all your sound designs and all your little sound bites? And you said you went out to record some stuff.
Yeah.
But also you download some stuff.
Yeah, I use Soundly. Yeah, I'm just Soundly Pro. That's what we use at Zetland. And I make like some sounds that I record. I think I have it on a different desk, but actually yesterday my father is here. So I visited him in the woods out at Ry. I was like, this is such a freaking nice owl. Like, just to have in there, take out the low end, and just, it's a night. Everybody knows it's night, right? That's the only thing you need for it to be night. So I kind of built it like that as well. I did a bachelor about binaural audio, so I have a lot of binaural recordings as well that I sometimes use. Yeah, that's like a funny discussion who we're making it for. I feel like, I put binaural audio in there sometimes, even though I know that people maybe aren't going to hear it on the headphones, but some are. So it could be that they're like, frick, this was amazing. You had a question also? Yeah.
It's about the timing. You talked about it could be a bit comical if you were setting the sound after the speaker, like if you were doing 1-to-1.
Yeah.
How do you manage to find that balance Are you also putting in the sound effects before the story is revealing what's happening? And is it just a feeling in your stomach, like to find your balance, or is there a general thing you do in podcast?
I'd say like the example I showed you where I put in everything after they've said it. I think like my old teacher sitting down there, Finn, he would be kind of disappointed in me for doing that. But I guess it's just like, it's not about doing the right thing all the time. You can mix it up. And maybe it just worked there because the rhythm and everything else. I feel like it's a very musical thing to me, like where the things are gonna land. Also, if you have an underscore, it kind of allows you to do some things if you time it to that as well. But I'd say as a general rule, just the sound before the speaker says it, because it allows people to think, oh, was that? And yeah, that was that. Instead of like, yeah, I'm not stupid. Like, I'd say as a general rule. Anne?
I feel like when I produce music myself, I try to add some sort of thing that's real and not just like rely on MIDI instruments, sample libraries. It becomes pretty like stiff and boring. You can really tell if a piece of music is just like written in the box.
Yeah.
And I feel like you really nailed that as well with the cyber security story, right? That's quite like techie. And I feel like I noticed that you use quite a lot of your own stuff, a little bit of in the box, of course. Did you think about that when you made the music for Operation Pellegrino? About like using, real stuff that's supposed to sound techie, glitchy, as well as this like spy thriller thing that has a cello in it.
Yeah. I think it just happened through the exploration. I did some, like, maybe I should show this as well. I have this called Building Blocks from Zetland, and where I just put all my assets. Like, so for example, I could draw in this, like this cello thing whenever I felt like. If I needed something like textural, I just have these building blocks to like get back to. And I also just did a lot of extra things. I think I just hit record and then I do a lot of stuff and then I chop it up later. So I don't really judge it while I'm doing it. That didn't really end up in a track, but I could always pull it in to see. And maybe because I enjoy the instrument part of it so much, it's just what I naturally like lean into doing. I say I thought about it, like I tried to keep a lot of digital elements as well. I kind of wanted to putting something through a granulator and being like just to make something sound digital. So I think I tried to create a huge lunchbox of like a lot of things that I can try to like throw onto each other, and then like, okay, this works, this doesn't. But I think it's a really good thing to have both, like always you need to have both. Maybe like some splicing things can also sound quite like normal, but also sounds a bit like, they're also splicey as well, I guess, yeah.
When you're doing this whole show, like how much of percentages of time are you doing the music, and how much is doing the sound design or the mixing or everything else?
So I used 10 days for the music, like full work days. Could be a bit more, like maybe I put some of my own time in there as well. Like, but for producing episode 1, sound design, this was 2 days because we had to nail the identity, and then episode 5 was in 1 day. So I'd say like between 7 and 9 hours, like for episode 5. For sound to sound, yeah. And then all the music was like made in these 10 11 days-ish.
So more time in the music?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like you make all the assets there that is easy to use when you sound design.
I was just surprised,
Yeah. Yeah, maybe that's kind of also... Yeah, I've not been in this business for long, but it's also just like when you have deadlines, you just have to go somewhere. Like you make choices and then... you get reviews and you're like, maybe we could have chosen another train to be here, but like it works as well. It's just like kind of pragmatic about it, I'd say. But like it worked out really well. It's not that you can't definitely do it in one day, but you can also spend more time. But it's not. I'm not sure that it's gonna get like so many percentages better. I think there's this rule. It's like the 20-80 rule, where you spend like 20% of the time getting 80% of the result. And if you then spend 80% more, you can like get the rest of the 20%. But yeah.
How much of it's revision based?
First episode we had like 2 revisions, I think, where we just sat down and listened to the whole thing, got like notes here, here, and here. And episode 5 was just 1 revision. So it's always revision based in that sense. But I also gave the session, passed it on to Tim. So he listened to it and was kind of the mastering engineer of it. And if he were to not like something, I like he'd just pull it out, like I think, and make sure the levels was good. So that was kind of also I could focus on just making the sound design instead of finalizing. I guess it was also kind of a cool process, actually. One more question.
Could we talk a little about your effects?
Yeah. Like just for the music or what? Yeah, I'd actually say like for effects here, I was really, really simple. I just had my Valhalla reverb. That's just what I used here. And I found this Altiverb thing, saw that at Third Year, and then I was like, went home and got it on Zetland because it's freaking amazing. And I also kind of use like Soundly's Place It also. It's super nice, yeah, to get these room feelings, change up stuff. I feel like when I do a lot of sound design here, it's a lot of just dragging things in, not like rendering stuff and printing it so much. Or unless it's the audio suite things, I might do like reverbs, but I feel like a lot of the effects are already in the music. But I think I get better and better at Pro Tools. Also, just like I just returned to Pro Tools at this time, so it was kind of simple, maybe. And maybe that's not a bad thing to just stay simple. And I have this thing which allows me to use some of my UAD plugins, which I love, but it also gets kind of tiring that you have to bring this box everywhere. So I've been leaning onto some Arturia things as well, some of their effects, which was... just because the things I play are so simple, so I need something to put movement to it. So I was just gravitating towards these like tremolo effects and this rotary thing. It's like it's just so. I guess this rotary is something. Yeah, it's just a stereo panning effect as well. Maybe that's also like I think I used that quite a lot to like just to get movement going in the throughout the tracks without even really maybe thinking so much about it. And I'm a big room. I really love reverbs. Having these like, yeah, I think this shimmer reverb is pretty cool. It made its way onto a lot of effects throughout the thing. If I was gonna talk about mixing this, because I've done a lot of it just by ear, not like printed the stems and then mixed it, because you're gonna not get this mix anyway, because there's gonna be a dialogue on top of it. And maybe what suits the scene is that someone is feeling confined, and you might want to like some things to mono and be like, oh, there's not much high frequency material and stuff, so you might just do remixes on the go. I feel like when it's podcast music, more like then you have to make a super nice mix. Also, when you have the stems, then people can like do their own mix. Yeah, but what I've brought on was these filter things, and I just think they're so cool. Like being able to play my bass and guitar with kind of just play one note and it does its own thing. It's like it's alive. I don't have to program that much. Yeah, I think there's some cool effects as well in here. There's a lot of cool effects everywhere. Just slap them on. It's almost just like the same, but just distortion and filtering. I get such a Call of Duty-esque game right now vibe when I'm hearing this. And it's so cool that it's just so simple, like the core raw material. And I don't know, also just like maybe the cello is my thing, but maybe everything is gonna sound like Operation Pellegrino if I put cello on everything from now on. So it's also like, I don't know how many shots at using cello as your main player you have. I guess I'm going to find out in my future works here. And something just like saving these old patches. I think this is a patch that I made. There's this show on Zetland called Clara, Johan kalder Clara. So it's just, yeah. And like, I love this one. I don't know if you, it's basically Decapitator, but just the UA version. It's just like to saturate things and make them sound like, yeah, interesting harmonic. Thank you guys so much for coming. It was a pleasure for me to present this stuff. Yeah, nice to see you.